Welcome to Edexcel GCSE RS Unit 10.3. Here in video 5 we will look at why Roman Catholic churches have certain features. From the outside, Catholic churches vary greatly in their shape, size and style of architecture, depending very much on the time period in which the church was built. However, it is the internal features that are the focus of this part of the GCSE course and which most Catholic churches share in common. What shape is a church? Traditional medieval churches were typically built in the shape of a cross. This was called a cruciform shape. Furthermore, they were usually built with the congregation facing the direction of the east. This was so the church would face the rising sun as a reminder of Jesus, the risen Son. Since the Second Vatican Council in the 1960s, newer Catholic churches have moved towards either a circular or semicircular shape. This is because it allows the altar to be more central to the worship and to help all of the congregation to feel closer to the altar. So what are the main features of a Catholic church? The sanctuary is a slightly raised area where most of the main features in a church are found. Upon entering a church, if you wanted to know where the sanctuary was, you would simply observe which direction the seats or pews were facing, and you would find the sanctuary. The central feature of the sanctuary is the altar. Remember, this is spelt A-L-T-A-R and not A-L-T-E-R. The term altar can be found in the Old Testament and refers to a place of sacrifice. In the story of Abraham, he builds an altar in order to sacrifice his son Isaac to God. In the temple, the priest would sacrifice animals and after collecting the blood drained from the animal, would place it on the altar as an offering to God. For Catholics today, the altar is a place where the sacrificial death of Jesus is represented in the form of the sacrifice of the Eucharist, which is offered at the altar during the liturgy of the Eucharist. Before the Second Vatican Council in the 1960s, the altar was placed up against the back wall as the priest faced the same direction as the congregation during the Eucharistic prayer. This meant people would only see the priest's back at this time. Since the 1960s, the altar has been moved forward so that the priest can face the congregation. During the liturgy, the priest, the servers and members of the parish who pass in front of the altar traditionally make a small bow towards the altar. This though should not be confused with genuflection, which we get to later. Also on the sanctuary, normally behind the altar, is the tabernacle. This is a small compartment for storing the consecrated hosts after Mass. In the Old Testament, the word tabernacle referred to the tent in which the Jews believed the presence of God dwelt with them as they travelled to the Promised Land. For Catholics today, the storage of the Blessed Sacrament in the tabernacle represents the presence of Christ in the church. It is for this reason that Catholics genuflect towards the presence of Christ in the tabernacle when they enter or leave the church. Furthermore, to alert the congregation to the presence of Christ in the tabernacle, there is above the tabernacle a sanctuary lamp, which is a candle which is meant to be kept lit whenever the Blessed Sacrament is present. This also has a link to Judaism, where the Ner Tamid, the eternal light, can be found in any synagogue as a symbol of the presence of God in the Torah. Near to the altar can be found the LECTERN. This is a stand from which the readings and the homily are proclaimed during the liturgy of the Word. This is normally in a position where all members of the congregation can see and hear the person reading. Some lecterns have a plain design, while some are designed in the image of an eagle as a symbol of the Word of God being carried out to the world. In particularly large churches or cathedrals, there may even be a pulpit, which is a raised platform for the readings. On the lectern is a book called a lectionary. This contains all the readings from the Bible in the order they are read during the Mass. Also on the sanctuary you will find the Paschal candle. This candle, which is first lit at the Easter Vigil, is replaced each year. They have a number of symbolic markings on the side linking to Easter, as well as the current year. This candle represents the resurrection of Jesus and stands as a permanent reminder of Easter throughout the year. This candle is used to light the candles given to children at baptism. Near to the Paschal candle on the sanctuary you will normally find a baptism font. As the name suggests, this is for the purpose of baptising new members of the church. Since the majority of Catholics are baptised as infants, the font is built to be a suitable size for infant baptism. Some churches do also have larger baptism pools which are used for adult baptisms. There are also a number of features which may be found around the church. It is necessary that during the Mass there is a crucifix either on the altar itself or within view of the congregation near or above the altar. A crucifix is a cross with a representation of the crucified Christ on it. By the door to the church you will normally find a stoup. This is a small receptacle containing holy water. It is customary for people to dip their finger in the water as they enter and then make the sign of the cross. This reminds a Catholic that it is through the waters of baptism that they first enter the church, and this is why it is placed by the door. The Stations of the Cross are a collection of 14, and sometimes 15, images recounting the traditional accounts of Jesus' passion, that is, his crucifixion. These can take many forms but are typically either paintings, statues or carvings placed on the wall around the whole church. At Lent, it is a common practice to hold a special service that involves visiting each of the stations and recalling the events of the Passion. Statues vary greatly from church to church, but serve the purpose of acting as an aid to worship by reminding worshippers of the lives of Jesus and the saints. These statues can often be found inside chapels or shrines, and are often accompanied by votive candles. Votive candles are small candles that members of the congregation light as they say a prayer for a particular person or situation. Finally, many churches have a confessional, which is a place where the sacrament of reconciliation, or confession, can be celebrated. In older churches, confessionals were designed to prevent the priest and the penitent from seeing each other. Some Catholic churches have removed these in favour of confessions which can take place face to face. Thanks for watching. I've been Mr. McMillan. That's the end of Unit 10.3. Please remember to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, follow me on Twitter and download the podcast from iTunes.